Hey everybody, I'm Pastor Siri. I'm a Lutheran pastor and a spiritual seeker, and I created a curriculum of love, deepening your love for God, yourself, your neighbor, and it's 15 weeks with spiritual practices to go through. So this is week 2, and we are talking about love. If God is love, like what does that actually mean? So take a listen. So here's the thing, as people of faith, people who are spiritual, religious, whatever you consider yourself, you may kind of know sort of what the end game looks like. Like if you're Buddhist, you know that what an awakened person is like. If you're Christian, you might look at Jesus and realize his behavior is something we should emulate. But it is really hard to fake it. It is really hard to try to emulate things that just really are a performance. And so loving God, loving your neighbor, and loving yourself is actually really hard to do. And so we need to have practices that get us there. It's a skill like anything else. And the skill along the way is going to take us, these practices along the way are going to take us to meet all of the edges, all of the places where we are struggling to do it. So if you, for example, want to play the piano and you're practicing, you're going to have really frustrating days as you're learning hand-eye coordination and you're learning how to quickly assimilate and read the music. You're going to have moments of frustration. The same thing is true spiritually and religiously, that as we are looking to assimilate a new life skill of learning to love yourself more, or learning to love your neighbor, or learning to love God, all that crap that was getting in the way of you doing that in the first place is going to come out. And so in this particular lesson, learning to talk about a God of love when we have that idea, but then realizing like, okay, what is love? Really, what is love? And realizing that as humans, most of us, if not all of us, have experienced a kind of love that is not unconditional, that is actually very conditional, that comes with fear, shame, guilt, and condemnation. Because we're imperfect, and because we're all carrying our own issues and our own scars. I know as a parent how deeply I love my kids, and yet I can look back on moments that I don't feel good about what I said or how I behaved because it was bringing my own junk up. And I've talked to them about some of it, right? I've talked to them and been like, I wouldn't react that way now. It was me, not you. But that's the point. Every time we go out in the world, the way we behave to one another, whether it's people close to us, people that we do love, people who love us, so much junk gets in the way. We do not understand and exhibit and receive unconditional love. So it's really hard for us to know what that's like. So the second lesson really talks a little bit about that and invites us into thinking about, okay, who are the most loving people in our life? When was an act of mercy and grace? When did an act of mercy and grace come to you that like kind of blew your mind? It was because it was so unusual. And that's what makes me sad is I asked this in a group of women once and I was like, name a moment when you were blown away by mercy and grace. And it was quiet for a really long time. They couldn't think of anything, which is so unbelievably sad that we are that impoverished about receiving that sort of just overwhelming love and grace. But maybe you have moments, whether it's from people in your life, moments you felt overwhelmed by love and grace and mercy, or gosh, in feelings that you get from songs, from movies, from books. We do get glimpses. And kind of what I'm inviting people to do is sort of put together a puzzle piece of all of those different acts. What is it that makes you feel alive and loved and cared about and nurtured and safe and cozy? What are those things that make you feel that with other people? And start to put together a map of really what deep love is. And along the way, like letting that marinate in you. And we're going to get to how we bring some of that out more in yourself as well. But realizing that those are just glimpses of whoever you call God, however you relate to God, those are just glimpses of what the one God is capable of. There is no way that we can outlove God. And this is what drives me absolutely crazy about some kinds of religion, conservative religion, is God is so black and white and so like, you got to do it this way, that you literally will meet a person who has more grace, more mercy, more understanding, and more acceptance than the version of God some people are preaching. If you can outlove God, if you can be more mature than God, if you can be wiser and more understanding with God, who the heck are we worshiping and why are we worshiping that God? I want nothing to do with that God. I certainly would not be a pastor for that God. The reason I became a pastor is because I've had enough of an understanding of the bigness and the mystery and the beauty and the love of this person that I'm going to call God, this being that I'm going to call God, that I want to know more. I want to get closer. And I want people to know that version, not this version that is so often dominated in the world. So besides putting together that little puzzle piece, the spiritual practice that I offered for this week was to actually write a letter from God to you, or from your spirit guides, or whoever you choose. So it kind of differed a little bit for me this week. I took a little bit of license to decide who I wanted to hear from. And that was really fun, because when I picked who I wanted to hear from in that little realm, and I wrote, hey, Jesus, hey, spirit guides, hey, so-and-so, what do you want me to know today? And then you just start writing. Sometimes an image or an idea will start to come right away, and I can't write fast enough. But like today, I had to sort of start out with like okay, I'm supposed to start writing, and then eventually a theme starts to come out. And it's easy to second guess yourself. It is really easy to second guess yourself when you're writing from the perspective of the other side, because you're like, oh, I'm only writing this because I saw this video. Or I'm only writing this because this is bugging me right now. But what's to say that the one that's trying to communicate you isn't actually using that as a starting point to give you an idea that you saw that video, that that event happened because you're trying to be communicated with. So in this process of learning to love and trust the God that's beyond, having this two-way communication, you getting comfortable communicating raw and vulnerably to God, the God of your understanding, but also to start getting comfortable receiving back. Because what I've noticed is I gain a clarity and a wisdom and a kindness and a gentleness in the writings from the other side to me that I might not always have for myself. And that's what's so beautiful about the practice. People who've engaged in automatic writing, where they're writing from the other side to themselves, can often be overwhelmed by the support and the love and the clarity and the wisdom and the grace of what they're receiving. And if they're receiving something that feels, I don't know, small and tight and controlling, it's probably not your guides. It's probably not God. It could very well be, just an aspect of yourself, or maybe not the highest, most evolved version of a spirit guide. And that's okay. It's nothing to be afraid of. You just recognize that and you're like, okay, that's probably not where I need to go. But I do encourage this practice because it builds a trust and a connection and a personal communication back and forth between you and the other side, you and that, whatever you want to call it. Like, I'm going to let it be really, really open. It's our birthright to be able to have that communication, to not feel so alone, and to discover for ourselves who God is. Because all of our life, we can have other people telling us, oh, God wouldn't do that. Oh, God did that. And it's fine to glean other people's experience, but a lot of what actually people are saying about God comes from what they've been taught, not from what they've experienced. And what I want to do through this curriculum is to go away from here and to start to get into your own experience, to start to have your own spiritual authority with this process of learning to love God, your neighbor, and yourself. meeting all that stuff that gets in the way of doing that, and in the process, getting in a deeper relationship with these three important relationships in your life. So, if you've never tried it before, I do encourage you to, one, start cataloging all those things that make you feel safe and feel loved. Okay, that's like the one thing, right? Start to figure out what real unconditional love feels and looks like in a way that most humans cannot demonstrate. But on the other hand, start to get comfortable communicating back and forth with God or your spirit guides or whomever you call it. A saint might be Mary Magdalene, maybe, is the person you really want to communicate with. I had some wild communication with Mary Magdalene several years ago. She really stepped up when I called her in and guided me to some really deep teachings. So I was really surprised by that. Like, really surprised. I was not expecting that if I lit a red candle and asked Mary Magdalene to show up, that she actually would show up and start guiding me down some wonderful, beautiful rabbit holes that I still treasure and honor today. So, this is your life, your faith, your journey. Don't let anybody else tell you what it's supposed to look like or who God is or what you're supposed to do. But I do encourage you to keep going, to keep investigating. And that's what these spiritual practices enable you to, is they give you tools for how you can start making your own faith real. So that's what I have for you today. Next week, we're going to go deeper into the concept of connecting with God. So I'll see you then. Bye-bye.